Sorry I'm late. Okay. Oh yes, that's cool. Okay, I'm doing the thing. Running around like a little bit of a lunatic. Hi. Welcome to the stream. My name is Lee. They vibes today, but I guess hers fine. Just, boom. There we go. I'm switching up the, thing. I'm also wearing a hoodie to disguise the fact I'm not wearing a binder because anyway, I got back from work and I was with the game, so we got done a little late, but give me a second and I will set up. So okay, that's my sketchbook. I got this, my notebook, and my pen, which are the most important world building tools, and we have a whole planet that we can build. Okay, and yeah, so we had the Cardinal World that what was her name? Mystical Unicorn painting gave her a really cool name, so I want to remember what it was. Spells. Ah, yes. It was Voila. That was her name. Oh, wow. Boom. No. So, of course, it was an agri world that got caught up in a revolution and was taken over by ecclesiarchy forces when they took down the planetary governor. Now, that meant that the Mechanicus was involved, probably because of a nearby Forge world that relied on the the agricultural what's it and so all um 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 so firstly we need a name for it. Let me just... Oh, hey, we at least have one viewer. Welcome, welcome to the stream. I was just telling a few of everyone that I was live so they could all come and hang out with me. We shall see if anyone actually comes. Sorry, I know my hair is a little disgusting because I haven't showered yet, but because I got back from work and then there was the thing and then now I'm here, but I wouldn't change that out because I love streaming with you guys. But especially when we get lots of people going in the chat. If anyone is around and wants to pop into the chat, please do so. I always appreciate it. If not, we'll just keep going. Imperial World. I have to go over this. So we got Imperial World. So, let's see. Child of the Creed. So, oh yeah, so Rogel Dorn so an agri world. Actually, there's a whole section in the book on Agri-World. So I'm going to read it out loud because it's pretty cool. So what we're going to do is bring up the that. Ta-da! So I can see it. And I know I need to figure out how to share it with you guys because, sorry, my eye itches. Boom. So we need to. Yeah, just make sure I can still read the stream chat in case, because when people say in the comments, I really like to, okay, so we got starships and, achievement points and endeavors and all sorts of fun things on how to, types of, corruption points and insanity points and malignancy and mutation, all the terrible things you can get if you, warp travel, Imperium of Man, wilderness, here we go. Beyond the fringes lie the halo stars. The entire galaxy is tinged with a halo of the most ancient stars, more nigh extinguished and circled by long dead worlds. The desiccated secrets and horrors lie entombed beneath the surface of these worlds are best left unexplored. Few visit these regions, and even rogue traders often steer clear. Most of the stars in the galaxy remain uncharted, their systems unexplored. Whole areas of the galaxy are embroiled within warp storms that are therefore inaccessible from other areas. Other systems are simply remote and await mapping and codification by the Imperium's explorator fleet. These largely unknown zones are known as wilderness space or wilderness zones. As warp storms abate, previously inaccessible regions are explored, uncovering ancient human settlements as well as alien races and empires. Wilderness zones are spread throughout the galaxy, often separating more densely populated regions of space. Humanity is but one of many races in the galaxy, however few are so widely distributed or so numerous as humans. Most occupy only a single world or planetary system. The majority of aliens are comparatively primitive, peaceful or powerless, and of little interest to humanity. Only a few alien races are powerful, aggressive, or possess technology that rivals that of the Imperium. Among the most common are orcs and Eldar, though many more exist. Yes. Hereditary rule is called Imperial Commanders or Planetary Governors. The Imperial Commander holds his planet or system on behalf of the Emperor. In return from his oath of loyalty and regular planetary tithes, he controls the planet as his own. The Imperial Commander is free to administer and defend his planet as he sees fit. Most worlds maintain a fleet of interplanetary spacecraft, ships built to operate within their home system, and in the vast majority of cases lacking the warp engines needed for travel between stars. Interplanetary spacecraft are common in all technologically advanced worlds. Even on primitive or feral worlds, the planetary governor and his associated staff and warriors would have access to spacecraft. The general population would remain either ignorant or completely in awe of spacecraft technology. Interplanetary shipping is administered by the Imperial Commander of each system. Some Imperial Commanders keep a tight leash on space travel, while others are far more lax and allow organization and maintenance of independent space fleets to serve the system. Similarly, while some Imperial Commanders police their systems very thoroughly, others find it impossible or impractical to enforce controls or independent operatives. On independent operatives. Some Imperial Commanders undoubtedly collude with anarchic or piratical groups, trading off the control of planets or asteroids, mining or transport rights, or even the defense and policing concessions in return for personal profit. These commanders may maintain that this is the only way they can control their worlds. Each planet is responsible for its own defense. Imperial commanders are obligated to build ground-based defenses, spaceports, and what defense fleets they can. The number of weapons and ships any individual system will vary, depending on the enthusiasm of its governor as much as the possible danger. In addition to ships under the control of the Imperial Commander, planets lying in vulnerable positions or having a history of trouble may also have an Imperial Navy base. Although Imperial Navy ships are independent of those of the Imperial Commander, both would be ready to meet in an emergency. Imperial Navy ships may also be stationed in one system so that they can patrol a number of nearby star systems. Huh. That's interesting. Ooh, that's the wrong one. Hi! Yeah, I was gonna read about Agri-Worlds, and then I got caught up in reading about other parts of the Imperium. So, lore dump time. Yeah. So, Imperial Commanders or planetary governors hold the systems, and it's a hereditary position, although certain planets do have, can democratically elect leaders or even, and if the planetary governor were to relinquish, control to someone else, it would be, as long as it's a peaceful transfer of power, the Imperium doesn't really care who the planetary governor is of any given system. It's just it has to be consistent, and actually, if they hold a revolution and the planetary governor was killed, especially if he was trying to exploit, either fall into chaos or trying to exploit the agricultural workers to a point that the ecclesiarchy felt violated, which, to be fair, is very difficult to do. You have to impose horrifying draconian measures to get the ecclesiarchy to actually side with that it's a bad idea. But or some other fight between the ecclesiarch and the planetary governor on this particular world, which needs a name also, which, since you're here and good at naming things. But what I was going to say about agri-worlds, the worlds claimed by the Imperium men are diverse as the galaxy itself. Generally, only those planets that can support humanity or be terraformed so they become habitable are heavily settled. Yet there are plenty of worlds where humans cling to life against nigh impossible odds. Such worlds are those with natural resources of great value to the Imperium, or ones occupying a strategically vital location, perhaps near one end of a warp portal. In many cases, tidy settlements might have existed for millennia, long forgotten or isolated, and its inhabitants clinging to a brutal subsistence level of life. For convenience, the Adeptus Terra classifies worlds of the Imperium in one or more broad types. In most cases, these classifications describe the use to which the planet is put by the Imperium, while some describe the environment where this defines type. The sprawling bureaucracy of the Adeptus Terra classifies and subclassifies planets according to a nigh impenetrable system, often combining several features. Thus, a planet might be classified as a hive world because it is defined by its vast cities and astronomical industrial output, but might also have a secondary classification: night world, ocean world, or even death world. The major classifications are as follows. Here we go. This was the part I was looking to read. Hive worlds. The surfaces of hive worlds are generally inhospitable, even deadly to human life after centuries of industrial processing. Urban conglomerates called hives, many miles in height, are the principal population centers. Factory, mining, and atmosphere processing are the main industries, and the worker populations are only maintained by high import-export ratio, which the main import being foodstuffs and fresh water. Agri-worlds are almost entirely given over to the cultivation of crops, hydroponics, animal fodder, or animal husbandry. They have few conurbations. Okay, I need to look, because that word is conurbations. I think that means cities, but we are going to look it up. We're going to do dictionary time. And find my keyboard, because I only an extended urban area typically consisting of several towns merging with the suburbs of one or more cities. Okay. So like a greater urban area, essentially. A conurbation is a region comprising of a number of metropolises, cities, large towns, and other urban areas that, through population growth and physical expansion, have merged to form one continuous urban or industrially developed area. Okay. Yeah, and we have learned new vocab. Always fun to learn things. But yeah. Oh yes. So, No, we need to put it here. No, not that. No. We need this. Let me do that. Let me do. Yes, there we go. Now I can see the chat and read the thingamabob at the same time. Entirely given over to the cultivation of crops, hydroponics, animal fodder, or animal husbandry. They have few conurbations, with the population spread widely across the planet's surface. They are often clustered around hive worlds who cannot survive without the constant supply of food. Some agri-worlders are almost entirely served by slave serfs, servitors, or ancient machinery. Some are so thinly populated that only a single company of troops are stationed there as a deterrence against pirate attack. Okay. And if something were to happen, an internal problem were to happen on that kind of world, there wouldn't be any... the PDF would be near useless because there's so few of them, and there's probably no Imperial Guard there. So, the difference between PDF and Imperial Guard. PDF are Planetary Defense Force, and are maintained by the planet itself in case of pirate attacks, random attacks. If something attacks the planet or there's problems internally, the PDF steps in. If the problem gets out of hand, they call it for backup and they send an Imperial Guard, which is basically they start the fight until the Imperial Guard shows up. Given the scale of war in the Imperium and the parts of the threat they face, the Imperial Guard is often described as a red shirt army. So basically they're the red shirt army's red shirt army. They're buying time for the red shirt army to show up, and then the actual Skitarii or the Space Marines or the Adeptus Arresta will swoop in and save the day, generally. Of course, that's more of a meta meme. In fact, the Imperial Guard are in lore quite competent. It's just they are not as competent as Space Marines or Adeptus Arresta. Then we got civilized worlds, which is the majority of the Imperium's worlds are listed this category, though the term could be misleading for even those worlds not touched by outright war in the generations. Most subjects carry firearms. Civilized worlds are generally self-sufficient, possess starports, and are able to defend themselves against most threats they might be expected to face. Most of these worlds are further categorized as cardinal worlds, garden worlds, mining worlds, or any number other of 1,000 classifications. Then you got dead worlds. Mankind has never found the galaxy strewn with worlds with minimal, even non-existent life traces, yet possessing clear signs of once having harbored civilization. These often appear to be the result of ecological catastrophe or devastating internecine war. Kind of. I mean, there's a lot of U.S. states where most people carry firearms. And I feel like Idaho is just, is like the least, I don't know. Idaho is, I wouldn't call that civilized. It's, internecine war. Okay. I actually did my, fun fact about Idaho. A lot of fun facts about it. I actually did my state, back when we had to do school projects, in, like, 3rd grade, we each picked a state that we, like, made this whole big project about, and I did Idaho. So I learned a lot, of random... They actually have one of, the highest silver, mining of silver and the mining of gems, like, and potatoes, obviously, but there's a lot of stuff that goes on in Idaho. A very resource-rich, area. But there's another word, that we're doing 2 vocab words. The word is internecine. We will go and type it into the internecine. Here we go. Destructive to both sides in a conflict. Relating to conflict within a group or organization. Internecine war is one that takes place between opposing groups. Oh, so it's a civil war, basically. A civil war that hurts both sides. Good to know. Death worlds are planets which are too dangerous to support widespread human settlement. The environments vary from worldwide jungles harboring carnivorous plants and animals to barren rockscapes strewn with volcanoes and racked by ion storms. These worlds are near impossible to colonize, but must be properly explored, which necessitates the provision of outposts and other facilities. Some harbor rich mineral, vegetable, or animal, or gaseous resources, and the Imperial Guard greatly values troops raised from these harsh places. One of the one of the planets I created was a death world. I built it up, and one of our the crew members is from there. Not that one. That's clerics. I really do need to. Oh yes, Hamish. It's the one of the Ziel is from there. One of our other crew members, who's not one of the Mechanicus people. He's from a planet called Hamish, which I think you named. But we have this Imperial world. So Agri world, but it's fun to read about the different kinds of Imperial worlds. Research station includes a wide variety of locations, such as orbital stations, asteroid encampments, major facilities on dead worlds, death worlds, and other planets. They are responsible for a wide variety of research, from animal breeding and domestication to weapons testing and gene engineering. They also serve as listening and watch posts for planetary system defense of major planets. And then feudal world. The word feudal refers not to a political system, for the entire Imperium is administered according to a feudal system. Yeah, it's a feudal theocracy, technically. But instead to the world's technological base, which will be just prior or just post Black Powder. This may be the case because the planet has been cut off by the warp storms for many centuries and regressed in the meantime, or its society might be rebuilding, following a long period of war, some other form of planet-wide disaster. In general, the Imperium allows such worlds to progress at their own pace, and it may be centuries until the feudal world progresses to a similar level as the bulk of the Imperium. Forge worlds. Forge worlds are the sovereign domain of the Adeptus Mechanicus, and most take form of planet-wide factories. Forge world often serves as base of operations for the Titan legions. Forge worlds are essential to the supply of arms and armor to the Imperium's combat forces. Yeah, the Adeptus Mechanicus has its own entire branch of combatants, featuring Skitarii Tech Guard and Titans and other terrifyingly powerful stuff that is mostly only used to defend Forge worlds, but and not always brought into bear in the greater Imperial wars, but is impressive nonetheless. And then, of course, it goes on to say, almost every civilized world of the Imperium population speaks some version of Low Gothic, also called Basic Gothic or Common Tongue. It's language in everyday usage by the vast bulk of Imperium's people and is derived from the speech of their distant ancestors. Low Gothic can vary wildly from world to world, and even a single world may contain more than one accent or dialect. Although, at first, some versions of Low Gothic may appear to be incomprehensible to an off-worlder, there will be many rudimentary phrases and words that which two individuals from different worlds might communicate. Some worlds are further debased forms of Low Gothics, the slang of hive-bottom dwellers, the colloquialisms of asteroid miners, which require further study to master, often obscure references to local customs and traditions. Beast organizations, which appear nowhere outside of the locale, can also be occasionally to be translated in common frame of reference to aid communication, which can on occasion be translated to common frame of reference to aid communication. Perverted and changed by local usage, to the extent meaningful conversation takes a long period of in situ study. When dealing with educated or traveled individuals, travelers may find it beneficial to conduct exchanges in High Gothic, also referred to as Principal Gothic, Archaic Gothic, and Prime Gothic. High Gothic is the ancient and highly evolved language used in ceremonies, consultations, and other situations where absolute clarity and definition are required. High Gothic has remained virtually constant and unchanged, and its principles reinforced through education and refinement. So the speakers from vastly different cultures and backgrounds can effectively communicate complex ideas. Another language a traveler will encounter is Tequilingua of the Adeptus Mechanicus. Although rarely used outside of the Order of Tech Priests, elements of Tequilingua may be found integrated into the Low Gothic of highly industrialized technology-oriented cultures. Few outside the priesthood of Mars can fully comprehend Tequilingua, and its language replete with internal self references and allusions to knowledge that remain unknown to those outside the Tech Priest closed orders. The Magi of the Adeptus Mechanicus have preserved this form of communication since the founding of their institutions in the dark age of technology, and by lore none should speak its forbidden phrases to have not been sanctified by the machine god. Okay, sorry. Oh, then there's abhumans. Okay, so here's... So having an abhuman population would probably be a spark point for the rebellion. It's actually a so if any planet rebels against its rightful planetary governor, the Imperium often does step in and will send Imperial troops to back up the planetary governor. And if Skitarii Tech Guard are nearby, they would probably be sent in its place, right? So if the Implanetary Governor facing the rebellion by the Ecclesiarchy would call in for Imperial backup. I'm trying to think. And then the local Imperial fleet would send in Skitarii Tech Guard, and then because the way I've working on this history is Rosvarla was because the Adeptus Mechanicus got involved in the rebellion. Well, here's a question: did the ecclesiarchal side lose? Or if not, was it a handful of people were sold out as instigators to kind of quiet the imperial cry for, justice, and she was one of them. She got thrown under the bus as the ecclesiarchy were trying to consolidate power. That might be a better... that's a thought. So if... so Imperial World... the first question is, what's this world called? The second question is, what kind of agricultural specialization did it have before it got taken... here. Okay, so... suppose it could have been a feudal world, but, no. I'm not sending a planet from a feudal world. That would be kind of silly. It might be interesting dynamic, actually, but no, this is a civilized world that we're working with here. Sorry, my brain is fogging. So, a cardinal world, former agri world. The planetary governor then probably was killed, I'm guessing, and with no heir, they probably just... No, that's it. The planetary governor was killed in the... So... okay, so it's a strong imperial... started because there's a shrine to one of the Primarchs because Rogaldorn set he set foot on the planet once before so that was 10,000 years ago, before the Horus Heresy, which led to Civil War, which led to Rogaldorn dead and or missing after that. So, yeah. That is... Okay. Alright. Focus. We've been going for 33 minutes. Okay. The question is, should there be abhumans? I'll read what abhumans are. Abhumans are creatures evolved from human stock, but changed and mutated to a greater or lesser degree. They differ from ordinary mutants in that they conform to a recognizable physical standard, breed true, and are no more prone than normal humans to further mutation. There are many millions of these creatures living within the Imperium, and they are tolerated or exploited by authorities very much like the rest of the population. It is rare for abhumans to reach positions of power within the Imperium's hierarchy, and many forms are subject to popular derision, fear, or prejudice. They are recruited into armies, fleets, and other services, although not the Space Marines. It is the institutions such as the Imperial Guard. They are often placed within distinct groups and segregated from other humans. So the question then becomes, if there's a local population of abhumans, both humans and abhumans, on the same planet, that becomes an interesting vibe. So that could be a potential spark point for the... Okay, so... yeah, planet, not plant. Although he probably did step on grass, so he set foot on the plant. But, yeah, so there's a shrine... I'm guessing, if the local Space Marine, that's, if there are any Imperial successor chapters, that, so, brief history of Space Marines, and why they're such a big deal. The Emperor created 12, superhuman sons called Primarchs. They were his, genetically engineered super babies, and he loved them very much. They were stolen as infants and by agents of Zeech and scattered throughout the Imperium by the forces of chaos to, strike a blow against the Imperium. The Emperor wasn't having that. So what he did, this was just after he'd consolidated Earth and was working with... that was when they had first conquered Luna and they were starting to expand outward. So he took some of the old data and created a whole line of super soldiers based on each of them, using certain characteristics, but not as cool as the originals, essentially. And what then happened was he began conquering with his army of superhuman soldiers and the regular old, the Imperial Army, which later became the Imperial Guard, that he had raised from Earth, as he united it by military force, and went and sent explorator fleets out, found human colonies, conquered or assimilated them into his conquered and assimilated them, and generally made his way across the stars. He found all of his humans on all his Primarchs on different planets, and he brought them back into the fold and gave them all leadership positions over the specific Space Marine chapters that he'd raised based on their DNA. And he, and then a bunch of them were tricked by chaos into rebelling against him, calling the Horus Heresy. So half of them went on one side, half on the other. Magnus the Red is the weird exception because he, tried to warn the Emperor. Magnus is basically just tragedy. In the Thousand Sons, he used a portal to send himself back to Terra to warn the Emperor of the rebellion, but that, in doing so, caused a like a breach that allowed some demons to get through, and then it turned out that he was right. So that's a vibe. Yeah. Oh, so Rogel Dorn was one of the loyalist Space Marines who, during the Horus Heresy, so he stayed on the Emperor's side during the Horus Heresy, but was either killed or went missing during it. He was in charge of the Imperial Fists. Successor chapters. So the deal with successor chapters is that, and if you have any questions, like, or think I'm talking too long, say so. But the deal with successor chapters is, what was it? The Ultramarines Primarch, Robuta Gilliman wrote this book, and he decided that, given the fact that the Horus Heresy happened, they should split the chapter, the Space Marine legions into chapters that were much smaller, and then one group from each legion would take the original's name. The rest of them would become successor chapters, and then the successor chapters might have successor chapters as they grew too big to be properly Codex compliant, although several of the legions refused and are just now downgraded to chapters but are not Codex compliant. Those being the Space Wolves and the Salamanders refused the Codex, so they kept their size properly, as opposed to dropping down to the smaller size the way the Ultramarines did, although they have a bunch of successor chapters, so that's a thing. The Space Marines have a whole intensive history. They're technically abhumans. It's hard to say because they start off as regular humans and then they get gene seed implanted, and so all of their mutations and that change them from being that make them biologically different than regular humans are put in post, like just at puberty. You have to catch them, like you have to you start with the initiates at like puberty, and then you start adding organs in, and then they grow up and occasionally die because organ failure, but they grow in all these organs and they start implanting stuff and tweak stuff, and then the gene seed is a whole set of extra organs that get surgically implanted over the course of years, and then at the end of it you're a full-grown Space Marine with all sorts of epic superhuman capabilities. There is the justification that they're all male is that the basically if you're not AMAB, the organs don't take right, and which is a legitimate concern, which also would suggest that that certain intersex people wouldn't be able to take them properly either, but there's a high enough failure rate that it's probably built into that. So that's the deal with the Space Marines being all male, although there are certain things like, well, what about a trans woman? Would she be able to take the gene seed? And there have been people who've explored that in fanfiction, but not in any legitimate proper official ultimate expanded universe novels. And then actually there was someone who suggested that it would be kind of boring because it would be such a high failure rate, and it would just be like that would be the whole story. It wouldn't be them doing awesome epic stuff. It would be them just struggling to survive and watching their sisters die as they put them together. And I'm like, that would be kind of interesting. I'd read that. But then they created the Adeptus Soresta, which was a how the Witch King of Angmar had a whole thing that no man could kill him, and then Arwen pulls off her helmet and says, "I am no man," and then stabs him. Basically, something happened like that with the Ecclesiarchy, where they were forbidden from having men-at-arms, and they're like, but women and NBs, that's a thing. And they're like, no, but we meant it in the general sense. Like, no take-backs. So basically they created this all-female warrior cast of epic nuns with guns who have power armor and intensive training and faith in the Emperor and, exactly. So they created the Adeptus Soresta, who are kind of cool and amazing, and yes, there's actually several novels about them. I'm reading one of them. It's kind of awesome. But Soresta is the thingamabobs. The what's it? Oh yes, Space Marines. Oh right. So that's abhumans and the whole thing with if and Rogel Dorn, and why Rogel Dorn, because the the Primarchs are such a big part of the founding of the Imperium and the Emperor's early days unifying the humanity. They're considered, basically holy, and therefore, if a Primarch was on one of these worlds, it would be, it's enough reason to create a shrine at the very least, and that's why there was this shrine here. And there are also what's called Imperial Saints, who are essentially regular humans who, in moments of great peril or danger, manifest miracles via the Emperor. So the Emperor is human, or he was-ish, I think, at the beginning. Some sort of crazy superhuman with psychic powers and pretty much immortal and, so humans is stretch, but he was, born of humans. And he, as such, was very big on atheism. He was trying to push atheism as a way of starving out the Chaos Gods, but that didn't work because that's not how they work. But he didn't realize that, so he refused to let anyone learn about the Chaos Gods, which actually made his own son susceptible to their corruption in a tragic turn of events. But he was almost murdered during the Horus Heresy Rebellion, and he got put on the Golden Throne, and now he's some sort of, it's a life support system, and he is so psychically powerful that he maintains the Astronomicon and can manifest miraculous things in dire situations when the Imperium is in need. And so Imperial Saints are those who've been so able to so manifest powers. St. Catherine's a big one. And then there's St. Who else? Oh, St. Tandra and St. Alia are the two from Renthok, who I had a whole mythology written about them because it was cool. And mine? Oh, yeah, I said at the beginning, more he, him vibes, but she or they is fine. That's what I kind of they. It's hard to get a good vibe on. Yeah, I usually say at the very beginning when I first come on, he, him vibes, or she, her vibes, but they, the other they is fine. Kind of like he, they vibes though. Yeah, and then if a bunch of new people come on, I'll usually mention them again, but that's okay. It's worth asking. But no, I kind of he, him vibes. I mean, I don't know. I felt weird about my boobs when I started, so, which is why I'm doing the hoodie, because I had to take my binder off, but, yeah, kind of like they, them vibes. I don't know. It's in that weird middle place of, like, close on the he side, but not really. Sometimes when you get kind of intensely into the creational process, you start I don't know. It's weird. You just kind of become so intense that you stop thinking about gender too much, and then you become acutely aware of it if someone asks, or you perceive yourself, or something like that. But I got super sidetracked by all of that, because Rogel Dorn set foot on the planet, and there was a whole rebellion which is how Oswaldia ended up with the Mechanicus and seeking out vengeance for also renegade recidivist was her lure to the void. So basically, she was part of rebellion, and I think, given that she grew up within the church and wanted vengeance, I think that probably was how it went down, which means boom, 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 boom. Okay. So the question is Adeptus Arresta base on the planet? That is an important question. And if so, is there an order of Adeptus Arresta that's on the planet? And if there were, that actually makes sense. So that there was an Adeptus Arresta order on the planet, but they were secondary and they weren't controlling on the planet. That was, they were, yeah. So, Adepta the Sisterhood of Imperial, I don't know. I need to invent a system, Sisterhood. Made its base on the planet. Or it could be, possibly a, what's a good one? A branch of one of the sisters, like have an abbey. Oh, hi! Welcome, welcome! We are doing Warhammer 40k world building. So, we've invented this Imperial world, which still doesn't have a name, if you can come up with a really cool name for a planet. Yeah, D&D Player 88, he plays Roy on our campaign that we run in the Blue Box server, and is generally pretty cool. If I remember correctly. And yeah, so we were yeah, so we're building this entire world from scratch. Well, not from scratch. I mean, you are. I'm not gonna lie. And you often come to the streams, which I always appreciate. But yeah, I don't know how much you know about Warhammer 40k, but we are basically just building a world set in. I figured as much. That's why I said you played Roy, because I know that was the character. But yeah. Oh, okay. We've been doing lore dumps. So there's a planet. Well, I've created what's the Rogue Trader ship. Actually, if I point, the Rogue Traders are a what's the technical term? A group of Imperial citizens. That's humanity. I'm trying to explain this in a way that isn't too lore dumpy, because there's a lot of lore. They basically have the power to go beyond the boundaries of the Imperium, which takes up the most of the Milky Way galaxy, and they hold incredible political power, and the Imperium is kind of like a feudal theocracy. It's technically run by the God Emperor of Mankind, but he is on life support in a coma, basically, so the only presence he has is the astral projection of psychic powers, which forms the Astronomicon, which means, which is the only way that any ships can navigate the warp, which is the only way to go faster than light, which is the manifestation of all of the thoughts and feelings of humanity. It's kind of like a secondary realm that's underneath kind of the real space. Going through the warp is dangerous, though, because demons are a thing. And anyone with psychic powers can have demons enter real space through their brain if they're not soul bond to the Emperor or really, really careful. Or both. So that's a whole thing. But generally, the Emperor is sort of worshipped as a god. He was a human originally, but he's also immortal and has incredible psychic powers, so human is not exactly true. And no one knows exactly what the deal was with the whole superhuman abilities thing, but he, after humanity, after the Dark Age of technology fell apart due to massive warp storms and because there was a new chaos god as the Eldar destroyed the warp, and an AI rebellion at the same time. Basically, humanity had this great empire. It fell apart. He got sick of waiting from the shadows, he stepped forward and united humanity, and then when he was, and actually pushed atheism, which is kind of pointless because he became a god. Or he's essentially worshipped as a god, and that, because of the way the warp works, that gives him power within the warp to protect humanity and do things like manifest powers for saints in dire situations where they need backup, or maintain the Astronomicon as a beacon to allow for travel between star systems, which is very difficult otherwise. It allows to take what would take years to take only months, which is, although it does take years, time passes differently in the warp, so it actually takes a lot longer outside of the warp, but even still, it would take way, way longer if there was no Astronomicon. He's generally, there's a whole religion based on him, and to worship anyone else is heresy, punishable by death, except the machine cult. The Adeptus Mechanicus, because they know how to run all the technology, gets to be the exception to that, and they worship the Omnissiah, who is the manifestation of all knowledge. Although sometimes there are groups that say that the Emperor and the Omnissiah are one and the same. Actually, one of our the characters I've developed for this kind of so what I started doing was I have Rogue Trader, right, and it was one of the games created by Fantasy Flight when they had the licensing rights from Games Workshop. They lost the licensing rights. But I've been doing creating characters and then building this ship with all the different, the intertwined histories of the different high-up members of the crew. And because the crew of the ship is, I think, 30,000 altogether. If I can find the notes in Expectus Primus. Here we go. Yes, the Zio and I keep the notes in the same. Oh, here we go. That's the notes on the ship itself. The crew is 26,000-ish. So I'm not going to do all of them, but some of the main powerful people: the captain, the 3 tech priests who are on board, who are part of the Explorer fleet. Osvola being one of them. This is her home planet that I'm working on. Because of the way the origin path, which is the character creation system within the game, works, it creates what their backstory is and what kind of planet they grew up on, and what kind of history they have. And hers is that she's a renegade and recidivist, so she was a rebel in a rebellion against imperial authority, and she became and was actually a child of the Creed is her background. So she was actually raised on an imperial world, but she was intensively studied it was raised by the ecclesiarchy, the priest of the god emperor, probably by the Adeptus Soresta. They're known to take in orphans and raise them as sisters of battle. Basically nuns with guns. They're actually really cool. And they came about because after the rebellion of Gode Vandir, when he ran both the ecclesiarchy and the administratum, and generally set up a reign of terror and was a terrible dictator. After he was taken down, after going power mad, everyone stopped. There was a rule that said the ecclesiarchy and could no longer have men at arms. That the administratum had to control the imperial guard, and that the ecclesiarchy could no longer have men at arms. Basically, it was separation of. Well, it was separation of church and state in a theocracy. So, however much sense that makes, it's a little wonky. But the ecclesiarchy was like, hang on a second, men at arms, that does include women and NBs. Well, they mostly said women, but NBs do fall under that as well. And it's kind of like that scene in Lord of the Rings where Arwen, I believe, takes off the helmet and says, I am no man, when the Witch King says, well, no man can kill me. She's like, no, well, I'm not a man, so... And then stabs him, and it works, because, well, she isn't a man by the strictest definition of it. And so that's... The ecclesiarchy basically took all of that and made a whole army out of it. The Adeptus Soresta, who are pretty awesome. I'm not gonna lie. And they have a base on this planet because one of the Primarchs was there. So there's this whole shrine, and they have a presence there, protecting the shrine and also raising recruits and taking in orphaned young women. Rosalia being one of them. We're gonna... actually, Mystical Unicorn painting came and named her. Which is a cool name, it's just hard for me to pronounce. After her parents died when... Yeah. Actually, yeah, though, there is that, whole no man of woman born. And then, I actually had that as a plot point when I was writing about the, Theta Project. A senator, an Australian senator, went before the, and gave a whole speech about how they needed to change the definition of citizenship to not include being born, because, that left out cesarean section babies who were as much Australian, were... Although, I don't know if they have natural-born citizenship. I think that's like a U.S.-only thing, now that I realize that. But, I just assumed that everyone had natural-born citizenship, and then I found out, like, most countries don't. Like, if you're born in a country, that doesn't actually guarantee you citizenship. In most countries, which I always thought was incredibly weird. Because I grew up in the U.S., and that was a whole thing, But, yeah, that weirded me out when I found out that other countries didn't do that. I was just like, what? And that's how they managed to deport deport people who've been born there or whose parents were born there because they're not technically citizens. And it's just like, that's exile, not deportation. Come on, get your... Anyway, sorry, political rant. Yeah, it was an argument made, that you have to change the definition of born under citizenship to something slightly different, which actually was, because there was a secret government project, including, test tube babies. It was, those who were not born, but were decanted from incubators, it was like, well, they count now because they had to tweak the law, because someone referenced Macbeth and said, we can't have it like this because of the cesarean section factor, which is interesting. But that is in a completely different universe that I was writing in. Also, we have new viewers, I think. Welcome, welcome. My name is Lee. He, they vibes today, but she's also fine. What else? After her parents... Oh, yes, her parents died, because it makes sense that she was an orphan if she was raised by the Ibtis Arresta. And when she was... 9, maybe? Yeah. So, she was part of a rebellion, and I'm trying to... Okay, so the world started out as an agri-world, which means it was entirely given over to... Almost entirely given... sparsely populated, entirely given over to food production for export and being brought to nearby systems, because certain, food production is difficult, and especially on highly industrialized hive worlds, you can't grow food. That's almost impossible. So it becomes importing becomes a high necessity. So agri-worlds balance that out. So it basically, they were growing food for export. The question is what type of food and how much, what was their main crop, or what, different zones, what was the climate like. That's worth noting if you're going to create an entire, agri-world. What type of, because even if, because planet-wide biomes aren't really a thing, different areas of the planet might have different types of crop, unless it was all like hydroponics and highly regulated. And even then, different areas might grow different things. So, so I need to, also, if anyone in the chat, I know there are a couple of you, want to name the world, it needs a name. The planet needs a name, and it could be any name. And one of the planets was called Hamish, because I think Bees named that one. Hamish. Actually, Death World, and incredibly deadly. But so let's see. It would have to be provide supplements for nearby Forge World. Main export destination. That's why is actually kind of, yeah. My friend actually had a planet named George, because what did he have to do? He had to, he basically didn't name his planet, and his players were like, well, what's this world called? Well, we're doing it, exploring and going into all the different continents, and he's like, I don't know, and they were like, we're gonna take it home and call it George, and now the entire planet is called George. Maybe... Cryomancy. Sorry, I just got new dice, also. Which, I want to show this off real quick, because I don't have my dice cam. Mermoth. Mermoth sounds cool. You know what? We're going with that. Mermoth. Thank you, Spency. Oh, Teth. I'm going to write this down, too, because we're going to need names for other cities and planets, and that is a good one. It's always good to have extra backup names, in case no one in the chat... Murteth. Alright, I can do Murteth. That could work. Murteth. I like that. Murteth. The planet of Murteth. And then Azroila from the planet of Murteth. And Murteth wine sounds actually like that sounds like okay. Main export destination is nearby Forge World, because when the rebellion hit, that's why the Mechanicus got involved in the rebellion, which is necessary part of the history, because if when Rosella got was thrown under the bus as the rebellion settled, she got drafted by the Mechanicus and ended up becoming essentially working for the Explorator fleet, being drafted into the Adeptus Mechanicus. Yeah, so Murtoth wine. Murtoth wine is made from not grapes. What? Because you can make different, I think if it's cider, it's pear, but peach. Peach wine. I'm sure you can make wine or liqueur from peaches, right? If you can make plum, yeah, you can make wine from other fruit, like peach wine, I bet would be really good. It wouldn't be a liqueur because if you don't distill it, it's not a liqueur, right? It's a wine. Yeah, while it's usually made from grapes, there are variants made from things like plums, usually plums. So, peaches and other fruits that are so there's a lot of orchards. Yeah, because it's the idea is that it's distilled, or at least some of the water is boiled out of it, and then it's either that or it's condensed back. Either some of the water is boiled out or it's condensed. You boil off the alcohol, and then you condense it back down into the base of the still. That's kind of how that works. So, you get them on the condenser coils, and the alcohol reforms without all the water that it's left in the other part of the still, and a bunch of other stuff too. It's just the booze part that comes up. I mean, and others. Depending on your exact the exact process, but yeah, including sometimes stuff that is not so good for human consumption. Liqueur is, yeah, I've heard that it is often good for putting in the cakes, but if it's not distilled, then it is wine and or cider, depending on whether if it's made from apples or pears, it's cider. Anything else is wine, I think. Plum, I know, is wine. You can make wine out of mushrooms too. Also, fun fact. I learned that when I was researching Renthok, because that's what they make the booze from on Renthok. It's called piss because it's technically the slang term. It comes from the theory that it's the emperor's piss, a gift from the emperor, but kind of a gross one, but useful because it's gets you drunk. They do have actual mushroom wine, but that's only enjoyed by the upper hive and the wealthy. Well, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, I was thinking peaches, or a fruit that is similar to peaches, and other fruits that are completely native to the planet. They probably introduced peaches, I'm guessing, though, as part of the... although, they could also introduce... because the Imperium is so vast... Ooh, I would love to try that, actually. To see if you could make it happen. I am down with that. And then mead is from honey, which I don't. Isn't honey doesn't it naturally kill bacteria? So like, can yeast survive in honey? I don't know. Question of how meads, but I guess they can because mead is the thing. But I guess you probably have to introduce the yeast or something. But that are native to the planet. I had a book on how to brew mead, actually. Well, my dad did, and he still has it, I think. He has yet to brew, because he used to brew his own beer, fun fact. And then I was 2 years old, and I kept knocking over, I was a young toddler, and I would go and knock over the pots, because the mash pot, because I was, young and hyperactive and running around, and he just kind of gave up when I was a toddler, I guess. I was particularly troublesome with it, and he was just like, no more brewing. So I feel bad about that sometimes, but, nah. Sorry. But the way the Imperium is so vast, there are probably, like, Groks, for example, no one even can remember what planet they're native to anymore, because they have been imported. They're not native to Earth, but they're not native to Earth. But they're native to some planet, and they've been imported to so many other different ones as a food animal, because they grow under questionable conditions. And although they're ill-tempered, they don't need a lot of food. They're like goats. They can survive on, food, the sources that would take down lesser animals. They produce a lot of meat. They're actually, quite useful for that sort of thing. So Groks are something with the Imperium. So agricultural products probably get transported from planet to planet. Different things that were originally brought from Earth in the first wave of civilization, however many years ago, and of course they've probably been changed radically by dozens of hundreds of thousands of years. So, well, not hundreds of thousands. It's only been 10,000 years, but that's a lot of time for agriculture. So, what was I gonna say? Also, my screen is frozen. Can you guys still hear? Like, is it frozen for you guys as well, or is that just a product of the playback on my end? Does that make sense? Oh, here we go. Okay, good. I'm glad. That's good. Okay. Yeah, but I mean, also, given the nature of... Oh, hey, that's good. Alright, good. So, it came through. Okay. I'm glad it unfroze. I was at work, and then, of course, we had the game after work, and then I jumped straight onto the stream. I was a little late for the, stream, because we ended the game a little late, because, that's how that works. But okay, yes. But what I was going to say is that the way agriculture, flourishes, what would be called peaches that probably have developed, had, hundreds of years of, genetic, selective breeding and possible genetic manipulation and exposure to other, environmental factors on different planets would probably be radically different in different parts of the Imperium, but might be called the same thing because they were originally the same crop back on ancient Terra when the planets were first colonized and crops brought out. The settlers in the very, very beginning might have called something after something they found, local native plants they found after ones that were similar, that were found on Earth, but they weren't the same thing. Um, uh, um, so the peaches that they have there are probably radically different than peaches in other parts of the Imperium, which are probably in turn radically different from peaches we have on present day Earth now. But that's so Orchard Belt. Okay. Orange is well known, and is known uh, um, yeah, it's Forge World. Hang on, before I forget to write that down. The nearby Forge World, which is why when a rebellion arose against the planetary governor, well, maybe. It just sounded, so she basically was on this planet, and when the rebellion hit, and, got drafted as the, maybe not directly, I don't actually know, because she was on this she was on Imperial World, and it had a lot of political stuff that went down, that was integral to her backstory. So when I sat down today, I was like, okay, let's create this planet, that we have dubbed Murteth. But Murteth wine sounded kind of cool, so I was like, and I was trying to figure out what kind of agricultural products and what the basics of the planet, what it's known for, what kind of country, certain imperial worlds are divided into different countries. Like, are there different countries within the planet? Are there different, what kind of cities, if any, are there? What's the culture like? What's the deal like? What kind of exports does it have? I was trying to get a feel for that, and then no, we got from the planet. Basically, Rosvelia is the connection to the planet, but wine sounded cool, and I needed, I was thinking, well, what's on this planet, and maybe the planet's known for its wine. That seemed reasonable enough, so it kind of went to that. No, the connection was mostly in my head. It mostly just because the planet is known for wine, which, because I figured it made sense. For it's something an agricultural world might be known for. I'm trying to get a sense of the planet, and then the history of the rebellion, and then what her role in it was. So, wine made from peaches is, or fruit that they call peaches, that is probably radically different from peaches as we know them on current Earth, and as they're known on other planets of the Imperium, because of the way, or, plant, modification happens over the course of centuries, sorry. Excuse me, the Skitari it oh no, world building is my bread and butter, so when I go on, this is one of the things I do on the stream, is this and character creation, and then, but with something like Warhammer 40k, I can tie the character creation and the world building in together, and it's I love world building. That is my main love, is world building. So for the streams, I generally, because I haven't a chance to play. Although that will change in October. I'm putting my first live stream of a game actually will be in October, I believe the 16th. We're still trying to finalize the date, but I believe the 16th. And it's gonna be a fundraiser actually for what's the Trans Lifeline, which is a they had a Trans Heart October push trying to raise funds for just for all their programs. What they do is micro grants to help people pay for hormones or legal name changes, stuff like that, which is really cool. So generally I'm well behind that. And I am. And they also run counseling lines, mental health centers for, because the Trevor Project is a big one, but it's also only for young people, and adults, we need counseling services too. So having counseling services available is actually a really huge boon. And peer groups and stuff like that. And I just, it's a really great resource. So, so we're raising money. We're going to do a stream to raise money, but because that's going to be the first time I play on stream. Usually these streams are character creation and or world building for different systems. Tuesdays and Thursdays generally do Warhammer 40k, because, yeah. But, I do a lot of world building on stream. And it's actually, I love world building. That was one of my few skill sets. I always said, world building's easy, plot is difficult, which is why I became a DM, because then you don't have to worry too much about plot. You can just let your players figure that out. And, you do the world. And, but yeah. So when I've been trying to do the home world of every, as I've been randomly rolling up these characters, and I've decided their path, the origin path here. I'll show you the origin path. It's super cool, actually. I have different charts. I have this chart for my characters that I roll on. I have this one for when I do Pathfinder. I have also that one. Also the random name charts for the Warhammer. Also, but the one I usually use is that one, Origin Path. So each here we go. Each point on the chart, each row represents a different facet of the character, and each of the boxes, you get one box from each row per character, and they have to be, there are certain restrictions based on what the one before was, into which boxes you can choose, so that narrows it down. But each of the boxes that you pick for your character have mechanical implications. So I usually roll, either I'll pick the career path, which is sort of like a class for D&D, and then go up from there. I did that for the navigator and for our rogue trader for the captain. But roll a d6 for the origin world. And in Rosalia's case, I rolled Imperial World, which is kind of like a catch-all term for any of the worlds that don't really fit the other. So there are a lot of variations. So we had to narrow it down further when I wanted to create the world. I was like, well, okay, Imperial World doesn't tell us much. What else is there about this planet? Because like Visaria was a planet that Odette was from the Voidborn. She was born on a ship. One of the other main crew members from the ship was born in a hive world, so I created Visaria, and then which was actually a pretty cool world. And then hive world, and then the planet Hamish is a death world. The arch-militant Ziel, which is one of our the main soldier types, is from there. It was actually kind of great work. So basically, you roll a d6 to choose the starting world, and then you roll a d3 going from there, and then another d3, or evens odds if you're right on the edge, and you only have 2 options available. And then you end up with a character completely randomly, and then you roll for stats, and then you do other character choices and stuff, and as you go through and build up the character. So when you end, you have a completely random character that you weren't expecting, so then you kind of work in on their built-in tragic backstory, what's the one? Trials and Travails, which is the built-in tragic backstory. Like, well, okay, how does that play into how they ended up on the Expectus Primus, and how does that play in with that? Because Rosvelli ended up as an explorator working for the the Mechanus Explorator fleet, she must have come aboard when the other 2 explorators came aboard. And they, the 3 of them came aboard because actually there was a piece of tech that, when I rolled up the ship, was building the ship, that they have ancient tech from the Dark Age of technology that's really old, that's been retrofitted into the ship, that is incredibly impressive and is really a relic. So, of course, they sent a couple of members of the Implorator fleet to keep an eye on this and work with them. And so far we have 3, because that's how many of the characters I've rolled are the other explorators. But, you know. Okay. I think, okay, I'm going to put the origin path sheet down. But basically, when I, because her origins, the things she got on the origin path are so very specific, and suggest a very specific narrative, I had to kind of work on her world when I built it. It couldn't just be any world, and so I've been building myself up now. I kind of sketched out, last time we did Warhammer 40k, I did a basic sketch of it, and then for this one I have been building that world, and probably if I usually do Warhammer 40k on Tuesdays and Thursdays, which you guys know, so late nights, and so like Tuesday, sorry, I'm gonna end the stream at 1:45 because I think I am tapped out for the night. But we can do kind of sketch out a history of the Bellion on Tuesday stream. I am hoping to stream Monday. I would like to have a guest stream, so we'll have to ask around and see if I can find someone who'd like to. I started doing Mondays as guest. I started with Roxafarius, who came on to talk about Bashar, which is a planet he created. And so I read through his world building and critiqued it and kind of explored it. So I was thinking of trying to do that for another Monday, if anyone wanted to. But we'll see. I'll ask around, see who wants to come vibe. But if not, we can basically do more Pathfinder first edition, character creation. And the Himbo Sorcerer still needs spells. We still need spells for him, for Vagmar. And yeah. And then maybe, and then I think I have one more sibling for them, and then we'll see who else, what else we can come up with for that. But I appreciate you all coming for the stream. And, yeah, I'll try to remember to post the schedule on Twitch this time, and not just post it on the Blue Box forum, the Blue Box Discord, actually post it on Twitch, so it shows up, but, yeah, I'll have to see about Monday, and then we'll, Tuesday late night and Thursday late night I always stream. Wednesdays usually I'll do an afternoon stream, and then, Friday, depending on, I won't be able to stream tomorrow because you know, stuff's going on. But, yeah. So thanks for coming. You know, I would love it if you came to another stream. We'll be continuing with Murtef and a little bit about the rebellion. We'll work out a history of the rebellion. Also, I just want to give a shout out. I believe so, yeah. If there is, I'm going to be there. These dice, they just came today. It was I ordered a random set from D20 Collective, and these are, like, really cool. So, they just showed up today. And I feel like they need a shout out. Yeah. But I need bedtime. You guys probably should go to bed too. I mean, it's not that late on the West Coast, but it's probably getting there. Alright, I will see you all later. Let me just do the, thing. Bye.